All the boats have arrived and been scrutineered by Friday night, so by Saturday morning the atmosphere at the yacht club is buzzing with excitement and anticipation. Kit checks, last minute questions and the keenly waited skippers and runners briefing takes place. Once that's completed, most crews are heading to their boats for final preparation on the water. This year's teams were 2 Negronis in Panache, skippered by Ashley Field, Whiskey Galore, skippered by Charles Clark, Balti Afterburn, skippered by Nick Ridgway, Tactics with Jeff West, and Kestrel, skippered by Simon Banford. Herbie Rides Again was skippered by Tim Whitaker. Chris Miles in Jezebel, and Wild Spirit, skippered by Paul Jackson. The fleet of yachts in the race are led out of Barmouth Harbour by the lifeboat. The start line is about a mile offshore.
Hold on, let me check. The next warning will be the 1 minute warning. 3 peaks competitors, this is race control. The next signal will be the start of the race.
All the boats crossed this year's start line in light wind, and it wasn't very long at all before oars were out and we were working to get across the causeway before the tide dropped. It was like a nature spotting trip. Seals, porpoise and dolphins in the calm waters of Cardigan Bay. Jezebel, Herbie Rides Again and ourselves in Panache were the leading pack by the time darkness fell and we rounded Bardsey. Whiskey Galore and Wild Spirit both decided to use their engines to make satisfactory progress and continued in the challenge class. The wind eventually picked up and the waves could be heard breaking on the island. During the night, Roaring Forties took the lead and pulled away significantly, reaching Carnarvon around 7 AM. Panache made it over Carnarvon Bar and cleared Musselbank, but got a rude jolt when they ran aground between 2 navigation buoys and had to wait nearly an hour for the rising tide to find a channel deep enough. Tactics and Balti Afterburn edged past with their shallower drafts. Kestrel also overtook, and the Panache runners left Carnarvon only 4 minutes behind Balti Afterburn and 25 minutes ahead of Whiskey Galore. It was a hot and humid run up Snowdon. The summit was busy, but our position in the field remained unchanged at the end of the leg, and I was happy, feeling I'd definitely given it my best effort. We departed from Carnarvon, and Ashley Field's our skipper purposely went the opposite direction to every other boat. He's like that in the nicest possible way. We took the longer route around the west of Unismont. Roaring Forties in Jezebel came off the mountain with a big lead and headed off down the Menai Straits.
Just left Carnarvon, running down the Menai Straits, ready to sort himself out after a pretty ruthless run. We're doing 6 knots over the ground, 5 knots through the water.
For the next leg of sailing from Carnarvon to Whitehaven, Ashley, the skipper of Panache, was proved to have made a first-class decision as he sailed at a faster speed and avoided the adverse tides of the Menai Straits, which held some other boats up, and his boat Panache recorded the shortest handicap time for this Carnarvon to Whitehaven leg, overtaking Balti Afterburn, Tactics, and whilst Kestrel, who were minutes in front, were left way behind. Panache was also making up ground on Herbie. Commiserations on this leg have to go to the unlucky Balti Afterburn, who were caught in a thunderstorm which damaged their boat and forced them to retire from the event. 2 Negronis in Panache arrived at Whitehaven on Monday evening, about 8ish, still ahead of Kestrel. We wasted valuable time and energy taking a wrong turn on our bikes and added another few miles of the very scenic uphill cycling that we really didn't need. Worst was to come though, with cuts and bruises and an exacerbated injury in the shoulder after a cycle crash during the twilight on the treacherous 3-mile rough gravel track to Black Sail.
Come on, out the way.
We went over Black Sail Pass around midnight and witnessed a spectacular twilight while ascending Scarfell. Kestrel runners came past us looking strong, and as we descended off the mountain we passed tactic runners still behind us on their way up. The serenity and calm of pre-dawn with the intimidating backdrop of imposing mountain scenery provided a suitably dramatic location for runners to be pushing their limits of physical and mental endurance this time of day, and I felt there was a social mutual respect between competing pairs and wonderful sportsmanship in the exchanges between us as we passed each other in the twilight. This attitude also extended between the competitors and marshals, who were also up all night, providing flapjack, drinks, and if necessary assisting the runners' welfare in the calm, ambient setting at Wasdale Head. Tactics runners finally chased us down and passed us on Black Sail Pass ascent, and they were just ahead, leaving the YHA Youth Hostel hut on their bikes during the sunrise as we arrived for our less eventful pedal back down to Whitehaven. We returned back about 30 minutes earlier than expected despite our errors, due to the more tactical, sensible pacing than our Snowdon leg. The sailors, who had certainly earned a well-deserved double pork chop pub meal and several beers, plus a good night's sleep, generously gave us a privilege of exactly 10 minutes and no seconds to shower and jump aboard, where they were efficiently ready and organised to slip the pontoon, our food even in a saucepan on the stove cooked for us ready to eat. We were whisked back off through the lock and out to sea again without a second wasted. What a fantastic all-nighter that was. The third sailing leg from Whitehaven to Corpach is the longest, and Tuesday was a good sail for Panache around the Mull of Galway, passing Tactics and then Kestrel, who were both further inshore. Wednesday morning we had rounded the Mull of Kintyre, and early on we were hit by an isolated storm and a very sudden shocking 30 knots of wind, which caused us to broach. After gaining control, we continued on a double reef mainsail and storm jib for fear of another repeat of this, and this caused us to lose some ground. The equally dreaded light wind returned and we made it to Giga. Then the tide began to turn against us, so we urgently rowed to shallower water out of the current to anchor up and prevent ourselves from going backwards. Here we had an absolute ball, larking around, swimming, sunbathing and snoozing under the storm jib, which was now rigged as a sun canopy. As the wind built slightly, the sailors got woken up by the runners and we jointly rowed and sailed over to Corpach and Scarba. We finally rowed for shore again to avoid the current against us at sunset, and then desperately rowed in search of any wind at all towards Corpach. We calculated that with no wind being forecast we would not make it to the finish by cut-off on Friday evening to get a placing. We opted to complete the challenge class and motored towards Corpach through Wednesday night, passing the boats that were still in the main race and had been ahead of us, that were still under sail and oars. They were fighting tooth and nail for progress. At the sound of Ling, Tactics and Kestrel got through before Herbie, who was chasing them hard through the darkness. It was a spectacular morning at Corran Narrows along Loch Linney. The Ben was in full view, looking majestic to the extreme and still capped with some patches of snow. First boat Jezebel had already arrived about an hour before us, and their runners were comfortably up the Ben as the rest of the fleet started to arrive. It was a sunny kit check, but conditions were a bit too warm for comfort up on the zigzags of Ben Nevis, although on the top it was cool and refreshing, with a few patches of snow stubbornly resisting the heat. It's a wonderful run back down Ben Nevis, but lots of hydration was the order of the day, and there's still a gruelling final few miles to go to the finish line.
2 minutes. 5 miles. Go, go, go. Go, go, go.
Congratulations to outright winners Herbie and a never say die spirit. Jezebel for being first to cross the line. And commiserations to Balti Afterburn for their unfortunate luck. Big kudos to everyone who completed the race and did the challenge. Thanks to Libra Education for making this year's events possible and being the main sponsor of the race, and for being part of the Kestrel team. Lots of special thanks to all marshals, organisers, volunteers and the race committee for their hard work and valuable time making sure this event has happened. 3 sets of runners even had the bonus of crossing the finishing line during the post-race party, which was then in full swing.
Thanks everybody, thanks for being here.